Okay, this is a 2008 Mazda 6. We're going to be changing this AC compressor on here. Just want to show you where it's located. If you come up here, right down in the front, you can see it right there. And basically what this thing's doing, when you turn it on, it's just barely turning, so the belt's just sitting there slipping on it, and it's burning up the belt and everything else, but it's almost to the point where it's going to lock up here. So you know, if you notice yours doing that, then it's about ready to go. So we went ahead and we got a replacement. This is a reman, so it's just like the original. It's just been remanufactured, and I ordered this from eBay. They had the best rating, so I went with this versus a new one because they had like 100% rating on it, so that's what I kind of look at on that. So we're going to be working from the top and the bottom. I've already got it on ramps. I'm going to go ahead, I just done this to get it up in the air a little bit, make it easier. I'm going to go ahead and get a jack and a jack stand or some blocks under this side over here on the passenger, and we're going to remove that wheel there entirely. So we're going to go ahead and just get started at this here. Okay, now just a note before you get started working on this system, the air compressor, make sure if you have any Freon left in the system, take it to a shop and have it completely evacuated before you get started on this. Okay, so we went ahead and positioned ourselves here with a jack, and we've just removed the ramp on this side, and we got us a couple of jack stands under here, and I'm using a 21mm, and we're just getting ready to take these lugs off here, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. Okay, with the wheel off, you'll come in here and you'll probably still have this little plastic piece. It's just got some little snapped in things, kind of like that. Maybe Phillips heads, and you just take and remove those and get that piece out of your way. That's already been removed on mine. So you'll take a 15mm, get on your tensioner, and I like to use a couple of wrenches for leverage, and you're going to push in that direction, and we'll go ahead and slip this belt off here. Okay, so we just threw that belt over there out of the way, and it's a good time to change that out if it looks like it needs it at this point. Okay, so we're up top up here, and said all we've got is the belt off. I've come down in here with a small 12mm. You can see it right here below this power steering pump down in there. You can see how I'm positioned there, sorta. And I've just come in here, like I said, with a small ratchet, a 12mm, and I've got my ratchet sitting right here. There's not a lot of clearance, but there's enough so you can move it, and I'm using a wrench on here, and I'm positioning it for leverage. These are really tight, and I'm just inching it loose. It's going to be very tight, so you're going to have to use something for leverage. So all I'm doing, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of room. Got just enough room where I can push this thing back up here to get a little bit. I'm just kind of inching it out right now. So that's how I'm removing that top one there that you can see. We're going to go ahead and get that completely out. Okay, now with it broke loose, I've just got in here with my little ratchet wrench because it's loose enough now, and it's easier to work it out of here the rest of the way with this little ratchet wrench. Yeah, I forgot to mention, but if you hadn't already, remove that negative cable off your battery there. Just remove that top bolt, and we're just going to set this aside and get to work on the lower ones. Okay, so we're just laying underneath the car here, looking up at the compressor. These back here I'm just using my little ratchet wrench to get on here, and it's kind of hard to show you here one-handed, but basically I'm just using this ratchet wrench. There's enough room for you to get on here on the bottom, and I just used another wrench on the end of it for leverage. So I just had this on here, and I'm going to use my other wrench to get a little bit of leverage on it. And right now I'm just taking these loose. I've got them broke loose. They're really not a big deal. They are pretty snug, but once you get them broke loose, you can just, these here are just coming out by hand. So we're going to go ahead and get this one out, and then we'll take that other one out there. There's both of those bolts out of there. It's kind of tight. You got to squeeze it out. The bolts are long. Squeeze it out the back one first, past the hose. Kind of move the hose a little bit, and then once you get that one, you can move this compressor enough to get the other bolt and push it up. So this is completely unbolted now. We've got the 3 bolts out. Now what we got to do is get up here. There's a couple of connections on the top. I think we're going to try to maybe work from the top up here. We've got a couple of 10 millimeters that are on top of that compressor that we got to get loose. Okay, I'm using a extension and a swivel down here to get both of these, and I've kind of moved this wire here out of my way a little bit. You may have to do that too. It's kind of attached to the front of your fans, but this has worked pretty easily. However, it probably would have been better to have broken those loose prior to getting all the bolts out of the compressor, so I probably would do that differently. But this worked out. It's just my compressor was moving around a little bit more. But then again, I've kind of moved it to where I needed it with it being loose, so it's kind of iffy either way, I guess. But anyways, that's how I did it. Said the compressor tried to move on me a little bit, but they broke loose without any incident. So I'm going to go ahead and get these completely out of here. Let me just show you my setup here. Okay, so this is all I'm using, just a 12 millimeter swivel on here, and you can use a smaller swivel or whatever if you have to. But there's, like I said, there's the 2, and that hose in the way of that 1, so you kind of have to push it. But there's the 2 on top of that have to come loose. I'm going to go ahead and take them completely out now. There's those 2 top bolts out of those lines. Now we just got to wiggle those lines up and off of there. Okay, so we just come from underneath and push these lines up and off, and I'm just getting ready to start wiggling this compressor out of here. Now I'm going to take, once I get this out, put a little tape over those lines for a moment, just to kind of minimize the air getting in while I'm working on this. Okay, with those lines loose, I'm using a long extension with an 8 millimeter to get way down in here. There's a coolant line. You can just barely see down there that has a clamp, and I'm getting down in there and taking that coolant line loose from this frame so I can have a little bit more wiggle room. Okay, with that loose, you can see I've got wiggle room with this now. So I can push it up, push it down. Okay, so just by pushing that big hose upwards with that bracket, I was able just to slip it right down out of here. The only thing I have left is just disconnecting that wire connector up there. So I'm going to probably go up top and do that now. And other than that, it's ready just to pull on down here. I just don't want to tug on that wire connector too much. Okay, I had to use a wire connector and come through this like fender over here to finish getting that wire. It was a little bit stuck. Now we're just ready to go ahead and pull this on down. Nothing holding it. Okay, so this Mazda 6 calls for the Page 46, and I'm just using the one with the UV dye. I was getting what little test oil was out of here. These don't come pre-filled, wasn't really anything in it. Same for my old compressor. I was going to try to pour out, see what was there. It was very little, couldn't even hardly get a drop out of it. But I'm going to be putting 4 ounces back in here. The best information I got was a little over 4 ounces. I'm going to be slightly, just 4 ounces is what I'm going to do. So we're going to go ahead and get this filled up, and they come with these little plugs, and I'm going to put these back on there while I get this inserted into the car, because I'm going to be flipping it and moving it around. Don't want my oil to be coming back out again. So we're just going to go ahead and pour up 4 ounces. You can get you a little container, measure it out, or you know, you could just go basically 8-ounce bottle, so just go half of the what the bottle is. Okay, so I've just poured exactly 4 ounces in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put these little plugs back on here, and then we'll just tighten these back on so we're not losing any of our oil that we just got through putting in here. Okay, I should also point out that when doing this, putting the compressor on, you'll want to also do your condenser. The condenser and the dryer are one unit on this car, so it's a good idea to go ahead and replace that while you're at it. So we're just going to go ahead now and work on getting this set back up into the car, and get our connector plug back in and start bolting things back up here. Okay, before I set the compressor, I want to show you this. I got this kit from AutoZone. This is a O-ring kit for every O-ring in the AC system for the Mazda 6. And you just got a bunch of sizes. So while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and pull the one off of both of the lines that we're going to the compressor, so we know, because once you disturb these O-rings, sometimes they want to leak. So we're going to go ahead and put new O-rings on there. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a pick tool and pick off the old O-rings, and then we'll come look and find the right size here. After laying them all out here, we've determined that these two are the best match for these two seals here. So we're going to go ahead and get these put on. Okay, these are real easy to slip on, and just put yourself a little bit of clean of oil around these, and I'm going to put a little tape over them too, just kind of protect them, keep them from getting crud in them while I'm pushing this compressor back up in here. Okay, so all I did was just nosed it right straight up in there, pushed up on that big hose, and I'm going to go ahead and flip it around, orient it the way that I need it, and then we'll go ahead and get it fastened up. This is going to be our bottom here. It has a little locating dowel right there. I think the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and reach over through that fender well and connect this connector. Just push that back together. Okay, I've just kind of set it about where it's going to be setting, connected that wire, and I'm going to try to go ahead and start connecting the Freon lines here now. Okay, I'm using my extension and swivel to take these seals loose that I left on there to hold the oil, and I'm just going to reach in there and get it the rest of the way and get my top line, I believe, on first, and then I'll work on the lower. And I've got this loose, it's just kind of sitting there. I've got just one bolt just kind of setting in it so it doesn't just fall, so that way if I need to move it to finish tightening these, if it gets a little bit too difficult, I can remove the bolt and move it around. The main thing is right now I don't want it to fall and my oil start draining back out. Okay, so I'm working from underneath here now. I've just popped that top one into place. It's kind of got a glare on it, but I've just popped the top one into place. I'm going to go ahead and get the bolt started in that one there. Okay, so I've just been reaching up here with a small little ratchet and tightened that first one, and now I'm going to be working on the other one. Okay, the compressor's still loose at this point. I'm just getting that big line on. I've kind of reached around, pushed the compressor up a little bit to kind of get some slack off of this line where I could pop it down on there nice and straight. And right now I'm just getting ready to go ahead and get that top bolt that I've got here in, and we'll just tighten that with the little ratchet from right under here as well. And they don't have to just be terribly tight. The main reason for doing it from the top earlier, they were really tight, so I had to use the swivel and extension to be able to get the leverage on it. Okay, so now I've got those Freon hoses tightened. Go ahead and put your bolts into this bottom while you have some slack, because there's a lot of stuff in the way here, and once you kind of get it set into position, it's harder to get the bolts in and out. So go ahead and set your bottom bolts into place, and then we're going to set it back up on this little dowel locations, and we'll start bolting these things in. The bottom ones are pretty easy to get to with the 12mm ratchet wrench. The top one's a little more difficult, and you see how I've done that earlier. I went ahead and started the top bolt and the compressor up here as well. Okay, so now we're just going ahead and tightening this first one down, or snugging it down a little bit. I kind of tighten them all at once. Okay, now we're just going ahead and snugging this back one here down. Okay, now I'm just up here from the top, reaching and feeling under here and snugging this top one a little bit. Okay, so all I've done is just finish tightening all three of the bolts here. Okay, fixing to put our new belt on here. This is the number, in case you need it. And I can also leave a link in the description where I got these, compressor and everything, but we're going to go ahead and get started putting this belt on here now. So just put the belt back on, and it's kind of hard to do by yourself, but it should look something similar to that. Okay, so we're all finished up with the compressor. We're just going to go ahead and get our wheel back on for now. We're going to be vacuuming this thing out, checking it for leaks and everything, of course, before we get the Freon put in it. Okay, so that's going to conclude this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a like. And as always, I invite you to subscribe. And I thank y'all for watching.